chat with each other, you can put that in the chat section. So if you put your question in the chat, I won't see it. But if you put it in the Q&A section, I will see it. And I'm only going to answer the questions for those of you who are in the Zoom webinar who put your question in the Q&A section. The one thing I want to mention to you guys before we forget is that don't forget that we are teaching a masterclass on stock options. A lot of you asked me to do a masterclass on options, so I put one together for you. It's going to be awesome. We're going to cover a lot of everything you ever wanted to know about stock options and how they work and everything else. We get started on July 8th. And so, because you're here at this session, I've made available the 48% off discount code that actually expired a couple of days ago. But there's one code you can use for today only. You can use the code, go to drboycemasterclass.com, use the code July 2020. July 2020 is the code. That's one word, not two. drboycemasterclass.com. Somebody type drboycemasterclass.com in the chat and then put in the code July 2020. Remember, July 2020 is one word, not two words. Okay. All right. So let's get started. First thing I want to talk to you guys about is something that was on my mind about, building economies and building a Black Wall Street. There's a lot of discussion right now about blackness, and everybody kind of loves black people right now. And a couple years ago, nobody liked us. Nobody wanted to hear stuff that I was talking about. I've been talking about this stuff for many years, and the resistance was unbelievable. I mean, when you go talking about black wealth, people think that you're being racist, or you talk about black people supporting black businesses, people think that that's racist. I mean, I used to get a lot of resistance on that. When you talk about things like black people owning businesses, I'd hear people say, "Oh, everybody can't be an entrepreneur," and I say, "Yeah, but everybody ain't meant to work for a white person either." So just let's not forget that everybody's not meant to work for a white person either. And unfortunately, we kill a lot of our best entrepreneurs. And then also, when you talk about black people educating our own, just controlling our own, building our own, a lot of people have always thought that to be impossible. I know it's not impossible. The reason I always knew it wasn't impossible is because I see white people do it every day. The reason I know it's not impossible is because I see Asian communities doing it every day. The reason I know it's not impossible is because I see Jewish communities doing it every day. I see Arab communities doing it every day. I see everybody else doing it every day. And so when you sit there and you see something that white people are doing every day, and you tell me that that's impossible for black people to do. I mean, think about this. You got black folks. Tell me if you know what I'm talking about. You got black people out here that will tell you that it's not possible for black people to build their own. Well, you ain't got nothing. You ain't got enough. So they're literally telling you that it's impossible for you to do something that white people do every day. Well, you may not know this or not, but that is a form of white supremacy. White supremacy is when you put white people on an elevated pedestal. White supremacy is when you inherently believe that white people are better than black people. White supremacy is when you believe white people are superior, that they have more skill, more capability, etc. So when you see something white people do every day and you say that it's not possible for black people to do it, then you are a white supremacist. Or when you tell a black person that they're supposed to send their children to white schools to be educated because black people are too stupid to do it, you are a white supremacist. And so I really kind of want us to really expand the definition of what a white supremacist is. White supremacy is not just an issue because white people feel that way. White supremacy is a bigger issue because black people feel that way. There are many black people who believe that a white business is superior to a black business. There are many black people who believe that a white school is superior to a black school. There are many black people who believe that there are things that white people do every single day that black people can never do. And so one of the things that I really love right now is that everybody's talking about blackness and black people and black power and everything else. And I love the energy. I love what they're trying to do. But the thing is, I want to make sure that we don't do it wrong. So for example, there was, Netflix. The CEO of Netflix announced that he's given $120 million to HBCUs, which I think is great. And he's also going to give $100 million to black-run organizations, which I think is also great. He also hired a black woman as, the head of marketing, which I think is great. I'm sure they're going to do some black content and create, opportunities for some black directors and producers and all that, which I think that's great too. But at the same time, you must also remember though, that while Netflix is allowing, black folks to get some of their money, they're also stopping black people from getting certain other opportunities that we may want from Netflix. So, for example, Louis Farrakhan was supposed to have a documentary on Netflix, and Netflix basically said we don't approve of Farrakhan as a black leader. We're not endorsing that. We're not supporting that, right? We decide who your black leaders are going to be. So we want to go get somebody that we think is more acceptable. We're going to go get Billy Porter, the guy who wears dresses on Sesame Street, and that's going to be a black leader. Like, so when they create opportunities and they control those opportunities, when they control the companies, when they control the wealth, they get to decide what the rules and the parameters are going to be. Remember, speaking of Farrakhan, Farrakhan's doing a speech on the 4th of July. I heard from the Nation of Islam. They asked me if they could simulcast the minister's speech in Michigan. Now, I can't make the speech. I wish I could. They asked to simulcast it, here on our channel. And I said, absolutely. I completely support the minister. I support the Nation of Islam. Now, what's interesting though is that Fox Soul, which is supposed to be a media outlet that's marketed to black people, they rejected Farrakhan. They basically got a call from somebody who said he's a bad Negro. We don't want him to have any power. So they took him down. Now, I'm not saying you got to love Farrakhan or agree with everything he says. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that, as you go through this process, you must understand that what you're being invited to receive right now, when everyone suddenly loves black people, is they're saying, come on in our house. We want to integrate you. We want to integrate you further into what we have going on. And I'm not saying integration is always a bad thing. I'm saying integration was a failed experiment because the terms of the integration were not properly negotiated. You didn't properly negotiate the terms with which you be integrated and connected into white supremacist systems. So if you're not careful, you're going to have just a repeat of what you had before. You're going to have the second wave of the Negronavirus. This is going to be the second wave of the Negronavirus, where they made you into a bunch of low-level Negroes who simply are there for white people's pleasure, meaning that you will come in and you will work for white companies and not build your own. But you'll have a job. They're building wealth. They're building generational wealth. You're getting a one-generational job. They're getting multi-generational wealth. You're getting a one-generational job. You die at your desk because you're working so hard, doing 80 hours a week, because you want to impress them enough to get accolades and medals and butter biscuits, and they're passing something down to their children. You can't pass the job down to your kids. So what I'm saying to you guys is that in this second wave, I'm not telling you not to participate. I think it's great. I think that there's a higher level of understanding of what is going on, in terms of what black people really want. I've had conversations with a lot of people. I talked to some folks who interview some of these political candidates, and their discussions are headed in the right direction. But it's very, very important that you don't do the hard, that you make sure that you do the hard work. You don't skip out on the hard work necessary to build your own and to own your own. What do I mean specifically? Well, here's what I mean. At the Black Business School, our Black Core of 3 is very basic. It says black people need to educate our own children. That means the support of independent black-owned schools that are run by black people that are designed to educate black children to serve the black community. It does not mean better public schools. That's great, but that's not going to save the black community. It does not mean schools run by white people with black students in them. That those are designed to get federal money from the government and using black bodies to make money. Black bodies are worth a lot of money. They were worth a lot of money during slavery. They're worth a lot of money today. So having extra black bodies it can be a multi-billion-dollar operation. Just go ask the prison system. The more black bodies they have, the more money they make. Go ask the NCAA. The more black bodies they have, the more money they make. Go ask any failed school in America. The more black bodies they have, the more money they make. And what happens is that you get the Negronavirus of integration. What that Negronavirus does is it pushes you down to the lower tier of that system. You become the basement infrastructure of a system in which whiteness rises to the top. So go to a lot of, for example, go to a lot of universities where at these white universities, they're like, oh, we love black people. We'll admit more black students, right? So that means you got more and more black people coming into these schools, going into debt. I saw this at Syracuse University firsthand. At Syracuse University, every year you have thousands of black students coming in, going deep into debt, into so much debt that they can never repay that debt. Most of the students I knew at Syracuse University many years ago that I used to teach have not repaid their student loans. And when you look at the leadership of the institution in terms of who's really benefiting from all that money, who's really running that campus, who's really making the decisions in that institution, that's where it gets wider and wider and wider. The higher you go up, the whiter it gets, the further you go down, the darker it gets. And that's because for many years, black people have been a wonderful component to your infrastructure. They've been a wonderful little add-on. They're wonderful tires for your car, right? So what I'm trying to say to you is you don't just want to be the tires of the car. You also want to be maybe part of the engine. You also want to get in the front seat, and you want to be the driver of the car. You want to be the person whose name is on the title of that car. You want to learn how to build your own car so that you can decide where that car is going to go, how that car is going to drive. Let somebody else do the work. So what does that mean? Black Core of 3 in the Black Business School, black people must educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support black businesses. So that means that we want more funding for independent black-owned schools that are run by black educators, schools like Freedom Home Academy International in Chicago, where you've got black kids being educated at a very high level. I want that school to have a $100 million budget per year. You talk about creating our own jobs. The best employer for black people are other black people. The best employers for black people are black businesses. Black businesses run by black people with black employees in black communities, and maybe they can also take money from white people too in other communities as well. Then when I start seeing black businesses in Chinatown getting Chinese money, then I'll know we're making progress. When I know that you can set up a business in Little Italy and get that Italian money, then I know that we're making progress. When I know you can go over to the Hispanic side of town and get the Latino community supporting you the way we might support them, then I know we're making progress. But right now, it's a one-sided equation. Right now, they come into black communities, they set up shop, they suck out all the money like a vacuum cleaner, and they leave you broke, busted, and disgusted. Black Core of 3, educate our own children, create our own jobs, support black businesses. So that also means, that last component, support black business, means that 1.3 trillion that runs through your pockets, it cannot just run through your pockets and run into the hands of white people. That 1.3 trillion, that must be, as much of that money as possible must be stored in the community. It must circulate in the community. But you have a responsibility in this process. This is not just white people. This is not you just screaming Black Lives Matter and begging white people to feel sorry for you and to stop doing what they're doing. It's a two-way street. Oppression is a two-way street. They have been beating you up, and you've been standing there taking the punch. So what I'm saying is that in order for us to overcome this oppression, and in order for us to have this true economic liberation that I'm talking about, you must embrace the idea of actually taking ownership of your community. You must prepare yourself to take adequate ownership of your community. You must prepare your children to take advantage of opportunities. You must prepare your children to create opportunities. You must prepare your children to be able to identify opportunities. You can't have your children growing up and doing things like what Suge Knight and Tupac and Dr. Dre and Snoop did when they had Death Row Records. Death Row Records should be a $100 billion company right now, but instead they weren't doing real business. They were doing Negro business. They were doing trifling business. They were doing idiot business, right? So the reality is that in order for you to benefit from a shift in white culture and a shift in American culture, you must create a shift in black culture. Now, I've been talking to you guys about this for the longest time. Finally, black folks are starting to listen. This decade is the first decade where I was actually able to get more black folks to really listen to me when I've been saying this stuff since back in the 1990s. I've been telling you guys that you must train your children to be business owners. Stop teaching your kids that the best way to get it to make money is to get a damn job. Stop talking about jobs. Stop teaching your kids how to play football and not teaching them nothing about how to run a business. Teach them how to play football after they learn how to run a business. Stop teaching your kids how to play basketball when they've never owned a single share of stock. You spend more money sending your daughter to cheerleading camp and to dance camp than you spend sending her to economic camp, business camp, investing camp. So in order for us to really take this thing, if you're really trying to get power, and let's say white folks are nice enough to grant you the ability to control institutions and to run your community, you must have the organizational skill to develop and to manage these institutions so you don't give it all away. The game of wealth, no matter how socialist people want to be, no matter how apologetic they want to be, no matter how egalitarian they want to pretend to be, no matter how polite they want to be, the game of economics is a competitive game. The game of economics is a competitive game, and you can't always get mad at somebody because they're smarter than you. You can't always get mad at somebody because they're more prepared than you. You can be upset. The world hates clever people. What do I mean by that? The world will get mad at you just because you and your children are prepared and their children aren't prepared. So you and your children are prepared, so your children go do business with their children. Your children are prepared, their children aren't. Your children know how to read, write, and do math, their children don't. Your children know how to run a business, their children don't. Your children know how to invest and build capital, their children don't. So when your children do business with their children, then guess what? The intelligence rises to the top. Your children become the bosses and the CEOs and the millionaires. Their children are the workers, the employees, or the unemployed and the downtrodden. And then they want to turn and look at you and say, you lied to me, you cheated me, you're a dirtbag because because you tricked me. Did nobody trick you? Nobody tricked you. I prepared, you didn't. Why are you mad at me? Because I worked hard to succeed. Let me just tell you a story, then I'm gonna shut this down. I'm gonna stop talking about this because I want to answer some of your questions. I was in college. I was 19 years old. Some of you may have heard this story because I've told it a couple of times, but not I don't tell it every day. So, but it's appropriate for this moment. I was a 19-year-old sophomore or junior at University of Kentucky, and I was about to pledge a fraternity, Omega Psi Phi. I was very close to pledging Omega Psi Phi. Now, let me tell you why I did not pledge Omega Psi Phi. It is nothing. If you are a Q, this is no disrespect to you whatsoever. I considered all the fraternities. I was invited to all the fraternities because I had the best grades on campus. I was the #1 black student on the entire University of Kentucky campus. I had the highest grade point average of all the black students. So they didn't really want me because I was cool or I was fun to hang around. They wanted me because I would boost up their GPA. So I was kind of the Michael Jordan of academics, basically. So here's the deal. So I almost pledged Omega Psi Phi because my roommate was a Q. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll be a Q. I'm one day away from pledging Omega Psi Phi. And the reason I didn't pledge is because at the very last minute, I had a moment of clarity. You know, I came home and I saw the guys on our campus. You know, these guys were not Omega men, they were Q dogs. They were not Omega men, they were Q dogs. And they were sitting around, they was all sitting around drinking and just wasting time talking smack. Now I had just come back from the library because I was on my grind. I was trying to get mine. I was a hustler from the moment I believed in myself. From the moment I was 18 years old and believed I could accomplish something, I was 100% hustler, 100% hungry, always thinking about my dreams. You know, and I didn't have much support because I didn't have a lot of black male friends who understood that. They thought I was too intense. You know, anyway. So I come home from the library. I see these dudes sitting around, they drinking, you know, just wasting time, ain't doing nothing productive. And I just looked at that and I said, you know, I really don't know if I want to be around this. You know, I then, you know, lift up my blanket. One of the guys was sitting on a shirt. And I was like, why is he was sitting on my bed and he was sitting on a shirt. I said, why is he sitting on that shirt? You know, at first I'm thinking, why is he sitting on my bed? But I didn't care about that. I said, why is he sitting on a shirt? And I realized the reason he was sitting on the shirt is because he had spilled beer on my bed. And he threw a blanket, or he just grabbed the shirt and threw the shirt on top of the beer and just sat down, right? I don't drink. I don't mess with liquor. I have too many alcoholics in my family. I don't want no parts of that. Too many black men go to prison because of stupid stuff they did while they were high or drunk. The white man will destroy you if you're sitting around high and drunk. You can't be alert if you're high or drunk. A soldier can't be high or drunk. A soldier must be alert. So that's why I never mess with liquor. That's why to this day I don't. So I'm sitting there. I'm just like, man, this dude spilled beer on my bed and just sat on the shirt. You know, and so they walked out and I just said to my roommate, I said, man, you know what? I thought about it. I don't think I want to do this, right? So the next day, apparently, I didn't think they'd care. I mean, who cares if I don't want to join your fraternity? You got a million people that want to be a Q, right? Well, apparently this guy was offended. I guess they weren't used to being rejected. So this football player, big bulky dude, much bigger than me, very intimidating, 6'3", 200 something pounds. He played on the football team. And he was really making some really snarky remarks, just really saying some really, you know, rude shit, you know, like just being a jerk, you know. And I was like, why is this guy talking to me like that? You know, so eventually I'm kind of mad. I'm like, you got a problem with me? And basically this dude thought that I was just, you know, a wimp because I didn't want to become a Q or whatever. And he was saying this and saying that about me. And so me, I've always said what was on my mind. You know, like when I was little, my mother used to say, boy, your mouth will either make you great or get you killed. I'm curious to see which one. So I got mad. I said, what's your problem, man? You know, and I'm sitting there thinking in the back of my mind, like, whoa, this dude is big. He could probably break me in half if he wanted to. But sometimes my mouth just starts going and I figure out the consequences later. And I remember I said to him, I said, you know what? I said, I'm really annoyed with you. I said, you are a young black man who has an opportunity to get an education. And instead of studying and building for your future, you think you're going to go to the NFL or the NBA. I said, University of Kentucky football players don't go to the NFL. Your football team sucks. I said, y'all sit around, you drinking, smoking, messing with these nasty ass women, just any woman that walks through the door, and you're wasting your opportunity. And I said, and you know what's going to happen? I said, in about 20 years, when I'm about 40, I said, some dude like you is going to get mad at me because I have money and he doesn't. He's going to get mad at me because I'm successful and he's not. You know, and I'm just thinking, I was like, somebody, he's gonna get mad at me because my life is good and his life is crap when we had the same damn opportunity and you blew it because you too busy trying to be a low life piece of crap Negro, and I was trying to work hard and invest in my future so I could become somebody. And I remember he's like, I ain't gonna be mad. I'm gonna be in the NFL. I'm gonna be fine. I said, man, you ain't gonna make it to no NFL. Nobody from Kentucky goes to the NFL from the University of Kentucky football team. I mean, you can't even win a game in the SEC. So what are you talking about? And I remember that conversation because years later, that's exactly what happened. Years later, you know, when I have done, you know, the 12-hour days, even on a Saturday night, when I have put in the blood, sweat, and tears, when I made the sacrifices, when I made all the investments, when I put in all the time to grind and to push and to be the best that I could be at what I did so I could be one of the best in the world at what I do today, I will run into people that will literally be mad because you're successful and they're not. Like literally, like you took something from them. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, but literally like, well, you know, you don't know what it's like to be in the struggle. The hell I don't. I know the struggle better than you. That's why I work so hard to get out. Right? So what's the difference? The difference is that my daddy never allowed me to see myself as a victim. He never allowed me to see myself as the white man's punk. He never allowed me to see myself as somebody that was going to have to be lucky enough to be successful. He said, either you want it or you don't. Either you go get it or you sit on the sideline. And he also taught me, thank God I had a real father, you know, because so many of our people are misled in this victimhood thing. Like you can get enough sympathy and enough charity from white people to actually elevate into true power. White folks will never give you power. They will never just hand it to you. It's never going to happen. The best you'll ever get is artificial power or paper power or fake power, because nobody respects a person or a group that does not have the ability to handle their own business. So what I'm just telling you is the truth. You know, I don't really care how many marches and rallies there are. I don't care how many times Netflix decides to make donations to HBCUs. I don't care how many government policies are put in place. If you're not ready mentally to take advantage of opportunities, to pursue them and to maintain them and to build upon them, and if you don't have the discipline to do that and the desire to do that, you're gonna lose. I don't care how much opportunity the world creates for you. If you're not teaching and preparing your children to aim for the top, then they're going to find their way to the bottom. They are going to find their way to the bottom. Have you guys ever seen this? There's a study actually that shows that because of this culture, this, you know, this not just this culture that teaches you to feel sorry for yourself, this victim culture, but also, you know, what some parts of hip hop kind of did to the mind of the black male. Did you know that they found that even black boys who grow up in middle and upper class households were likely to end up poor? Like they would find their way to the bottom. And that's because if you have a bottom dweller mentality, then you're going to end up exactly where you're trying to go. You know, so I just encourage you to consider this as you make decisions for yourself and your family. When you have your children in your house, that is your castle, that is your kingdom. You decide whether they're going to be prepared or they're going to be unprepared. And that means that when you're talking about playing this economic game, there are specific and simple skills that wealthy people tend to understand that a lot of people do not. there are also distractions out here. And if you notice, if you watch me, if you listen to me on a regular basis, you'll know I don't get too caught up in all the emotional triggers that are dropped on you every single day in media. I pay attention, I'll talk about it, I'll respond to some of it. But when you look at what I do on a day to day basis, it always comes back to economics and education and preparation. I don't care what CNN just said on TV about Black Lives Matter or whatever, right? So mission critical, mission focused. That's what you must be. People who understand their mission and pursue that mission are the people who win in this world. Those who do not win. Okay, so I that was on my heart. I hope that that helped you guys that are listening. I'm going to now answer questions, and I apologize for going into that, but that was really what I was thinking about, and I feel like that's the best way I can help you. Attitude is everything. So I want your attitude to be one of power. I want your attitude to be one of prosperity. I want your attitude to be one of ownership. I want your attitude to be one of investing. I want your attitude to be one of planting seeds. I want your attitude to be one of never believing that anything's impossible for you. Because everything that you ever want to do in your life is possible. You have to be willing to sacrifice in order to make it happen. All right. So anyway, by the way, so some of you are asking about that code for the masterclass. You can go to drboycemasterclass.com if you want to join us July 8th. That's when the options masterclass starts. You can go to drboycemasterclass.com. The code word is July 2020. So if you use the code July 2020, it's all one word. You can get 48% off. So that code's available since you guys are listening today. So drboycemasterclass.com. The code is July 2020. One word. Okay, so let's go. Let's go. All right. So Audrey, do you need experience in stock or options to participate in the stock options class? You do not need experience in either one to join the stock options class, Audrey. Definitely not in options. Stock, you want to at least know the basics of why you want to own stock and things like that. And I can answer some stock related questions as we talk about options. But in general, I don't think a person needs to understand stocks in order to understand options, but options are linked to stocks. Options are what they call derivative securities that are linked to the price of the stock. And so if you, so options are typically used to provide assistance in your stock strategy. So in a way, you can think of the stock as Michael Jordan and think of the options like Scottie Pippen. If you know anything about the Chicago Bulls, Pippen wasn't as good of a player as Jordan, but Jordan couldn't win games without Pippen, right? Pippen was kind of the backup. So basically options allow you to back up your stock strategy. They allow you to do a few things. Create income in your portfolio without having to sell your stock. They allow you to manage your risk so you can reduce your risk of a downside, protect yourself against losing money. They also allow you to scale up and participate in the upside. A lot of investing, a lot of the reason why you want to be an investor in this country is because when you're in the game, you get a chance to participate in the upside. So basically, being a bad investor is actually far better than not investing at all. Even a bad investor at least has an opportunity to participate in the upside. If you don't invest at all, then you're basically spending all your money. Spending means there's no upside. Spending only has downside. Spending guarantees that your return on every investment is going to be about negative 100%. That means every time you go out to eat, negative 100%. Every time you go buy a new pair of Jordans, negative 100%. Every time you go on vacation, negative 100%. Well, at least with stocks, you get ownership in some sort of asset that has the possibility of going up in value, and that's why the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, because rich people on average tend to invest. That's why really the number one thing I want for everybody that watches me is I really want you to just take that time and go start buying stock, because if we increase the stock market participation rate in the black community, that will be a natural wealth accelerator for black people. Let's see, Elijah, are there any examples of operating agreements for an investment group? You know what? We're going to provide that. We're putting together the template for the investment clubs. We're meeting on that. Our teams are meeting on that about twice a week. And so we're going to launch something soon that'll help you guys kind of get that moving. There's just some work we have to do in terms of working with lawyers and stuff like that. But we'll give you templates. We'll give you kind of everything that you need. So give us some time, but we're almost done with the investment clubs. Please comment on Blacking Bank, says Estelle, an Ariel investment company. I just opened an account with One United. Yeah, I think Banking Black is very good. Yeah, it's definitely good for the black banks, and I think that black banks deserve our support. Ariel Capital, I know John Rogers. Well, I met him, and I had one meeting with him though, so I don't know how much we know each other. But I like the guy, and I think he's very smart, and I think he's worth listening to. And One United Bank, I don't know anybody at One United, but God bless them. I see them advertising a lot. Carletta, pleasure to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Are fractional stocks a good strategy for long-term investing? Yes, because if you buy a fractional share, it's the same as buying an actual share for the most part. Fractional share is similar to actual share in the sense that you're participating in the growth of the stock. So if you have a stock like Amazon that's $2,600 a share, fractional shares allow you to get in on the Amazon thing, without having to put up $2,600. You can buy $10 worth of Amazon or $50 worth, whatever you can afford. Latasha, I want to take your options masterclass, but I'm a beginner. I just finished your mini investment course and really don't think I'm ready for trading options. What are your thoughts? Do you think I should take your masterclass investment or master investment class instead? Well, Latasha, let me lay this out for you. Here's one thing that we offer you with every program in the Black Business School, just to make sure you're always making the right decision. We want you to make the right decision 100% of the time, and we don't want a single nickel from you for anything unless you walk away feeling like you got 10 times more than what you paid for. So we have a 30-day 100% money back guarantee on every program. So that means if you join the class and you feel it's not for you, you can just email support@theblackbusinessschool.com, and we have an excellent, outstanding support team that will respond to you right away and will take good care of you, and they will make it right. And so there's no risk to you whatsoever. So I will say this. Any question that you have, I designed the options masterclass in such a way where it's built for beginners. It's built literally in a way where I could explain this to an 8-year-old. And so really, you will understand options when the program's done, even if you've never invested in stock before. And the reason that I think the Black Business School, that we're good at what we do, is because as a finance professor, it's a little bit different from being like, say, a financial expert or just a guy who read some books. We don't read the books, we write the books. And so basically by understanding the theory and understanding the intricacies and the subtleties of it on such a high level, I can explain it in a way where you'll actually understand that you've understood what options are since you were a little kid. Like, I can take what you already know and say, oh, it's just like that. And you'll go, oh, okay, I get it now, right? So that's one of the strengths that we have, and that's one of the things that I think makes the Black Business School very unique. And we do teach better than any university, HBCU, any Ivy League school that you've ever gone to, because we're uniquely designed to make sure that this is understandable even to children. So feel free to come in, bring your kids, etc. The URL is drboycemasterclass.com. The code to get 48% off, it'll expire tomorrow, but the code is July 2020. It's one word, not two. Maryland, old 401k is sitting but making money. Should I move it to an IRA or something else? I don't see any reason that you have to move it. I think if it's making money, you have to sit there. If it's an account that you can keep contributing to, the key to building wealth is to be consistent. Remember, wealth is an accumulation process. I mean, something has to accumulate. So, you have to just even if you're not doing very much, just doing something small every week, every month on a consistent basis on autopilot is really how people become very wealthy. Like, for example, the $5 a day plan that I gave you guys have access to that. If you don't, just email support@theblackbusinessschool.com and they can forward you a copy of my $5 a day ebook, which is totally free for you guys. It's on sale on Amazon, but you don't have to buy it over there. Just email support@theblackbusinessschool.com. They'll send it to you. And what it does is it explains how wealth accumulation works. Basically, you're just dropping little drips of money into your stock portfolio. And even if you don't know anything about stocks and you're literally randomly picking stocks, I kid you not, a 5-year-old could be randomly picking stocks and just putting in their $5 a day, and that person's wealth will grow to almost, to extremely well-defined amounts of money over a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year period. The thing that's hard to replace is time. The time component is what makes the difference. That's why I really do my best to convince you guys to invest with your kids, to get your kids started early, because if you get your kids started early and you get them on a consistent training program, financially speaking, meaning you're consistently dropping small amounts of wealth into their portfolio, then it's very easy for that child to be extremely wealthy by the time they're in their 20s or their 30s, right? So so just kind of think about that, and that's the best suggestion I can make to you guys. And put your questions in the Q&A section. I can't see them if they're in the chat because there's 40 questions in the question and answer section, so I want to try to get through those. Michael, please explain exchange traded funds. An ETF is basically an exchange traded fund is basically something that indexes itself to or connects itself to some sort of broad category of stocks. So, for example, the Spider ETF is for the S&P 500. So that basically links itself to the S&P 500, which means that when you buy the ETF, you're buying a little bit of every single stock in the S&P 500. Instead of having to go out and buy 500 individual stocks or pieces of stocks, you can just buy an ETF, and an ETF will give you instant diversification. Like, ETFs don't go bankrupt. A company can go bankrupt. An ETF won't go bankrupt, because in order for an ETF to go bankrupt, then all the companies in the ETF would have to go bankrupt, which is a statistical impossibility, right? So ETFs are a great way to get instant diversification. Let's see. I heard the government is buying bonds of large companies. How does this provide opportunities for us? Well, what this does is when the government's intervening and they're buying bonds and stuff like that, remember that they can inject their financial medicine anywhere. Like, the government can put their money anywhere they want. But they tend to inject their financial medicine at the top. They inject their financial medicine into the financial markets. That's why I encourage you guys to be involved in the markets, so that when they inject the money and inject the resources, you're going to be the first to benefit. Our country doesn't do enough for everybody and for rank and file people, and that's unfortunate. But what is an opportunity in America is that anybody can invest in the stock market. There is no whites only sign. There is no sign that says only rich people can do it. There are apps that allow anybody with $10 in their account to get started. And so I encourage you guys to just sort of understand that the way to benefit from what the government's doing is to position yourself appropriately, and that's sort of what this government intervention does. So that URL for the masterclass, drboycemasterclass.com. That's the URL, drboycemasterclass.com. The code is July 2020. That's one word, not two. July 2020. If you want 48% off, we start July 8th. We're going to meet for 6 weeks at 8 p.m. Each Wednesday. And the recordings will be available, all the slides will be available, everything will be available, and by the time you're done, you'll be able to go in, jump in, and use options to strengthen your portfolio. We will cover all the basics of options and how they work, and the different types of options, and then we're going to talk about the strategies. We're going to talk about the variables that move option prices and how they operate. And the cool thing is that because I understand it so well, I can explain it in ways that won't confuse you and throw you off, because there are a lot of these what they call the Greek variables that can move option prices, and it can be very complex, but there are ways to make it simple, and that's the goal. The goal is to make it really simple so we can then understand the complex. Okay, so let me